As the crowd gathered around him, Deputy Consul Victor van Baskerville announced his new laws. The first law, known as the Victor Special Law, Paragraph 1, Article 1, stipulated that whoever pulled out an appointed stake, henceforth referred to as the stake, would be paid 100 million gold immediately by Victor himself. The crowd was stunned by the announcement and exclaimed in shock. They couldn't believe that they could get such a huge amount of money just by pulling out a stake. One person in the crowd asked if it was really that easy, and everyone murmured about it in disbelief. Despite the excitement, nobody came forward to pull out the stake. Victor saw that no one was willing to take the risk, so he asked if there was no one who wanted to get 100 million gold. When no one stepped forward, Victor declared a new law. The Victor Special Law, Paragraph 1, Article 2, stated that the person who pulled out this stake would be paid 1 billion gold immediately by Victor himself. This time, the offer was too tempting to resist. Suddenly, Victor heard someone laugh, and he saw a fat old man in the crowd with an angry voice. The man exclaimed that it was ridiculous and asked if Victor was making fun of them. He questioned who would attempt it, and the crowd began to murmur in agreement. But someone in the crowd pointed out that 1 billion gold was not chump change, and the mood shifted slightly. General Secretary Chihuahua, who was on stage behind Victor, wondered why they were getting embarrassed instead. But Victor ignored all the comments and asked if there was no one willing to take the challenge. With no one stepping forward, Victor surprised the crowd once again by declaring a new law. This time, the reward was even higher, 10 billion gold. The crowd was stunned by the offer, and Victor confidently stated that the person who pulled out the stake would be rewarded with the sum. As Victor repeated his offer, the crowd was in a state of shock and confusion. Some wondered if it was all just a joke, while others were tempted to try their luck. However, others warned them of the potential consequences, saying that just look at the sword on his waist and the potential danger of being perceived as greedy by the deputy consul. Despite Victor's repeated offers, no one came forward to pull the stake. As he was about to speak again, he was interrupted by Chihuahua, who whispered to him that there was not enough money in the city to fulfill his offer. Suddenly, a small hand shot up from within the crowd. The hand belonged to a little girl who had a flower basket on her other hand. She timidly asked if she could try. The crowd was shocked that this little girl was trying to pull out the stake from the ground. An old man recognized her as Judy, the flower girl, and tried to stop her. But Judy explained that her mother was sick and she had to try something. Despite the old man's warnings, Judy approached the stake and stood in front of it. She looked at the man behind the stake with fear and hesitation. Judy thought to herself, hoping to calm her nerves. She wondered if she would receive any payment for this act of bravado. She had volunteered to pull out the stake, hoping to earn a few coins for her efforts. She was hoped that at least she would be able to sell the basket full of flowers she had brought with her to the event. Without a word, Victor simply said, "Pull it out." His voice was devoid of emotion, and Judy couldn't tell if he was angry or bored. She took a deep breath, grabbed the stake with both hands and pulled with all her might. To her surprise, the stake came out of the ground easily, as if it had never been stuck there in the first place. The crowd gasped in shock and disbelief, staring at Judy in amazement. They couldn't believe that such a small and frail girl had managed to pull out the stake so effortlessly. Judy looked at Victor, who had been watching her intently, with the stake in her hand. Judy wondered if she had done something wrong, as Victor made a motion as if he was about to pull out his sword. Her heart sank as she closed her eyes in fear, tears threatening to spill down her cheeks. She thought of her mother and wondered who would take care of her after she was gone. But instead of the sword, a hand with a bag appeared in front of her. As Judy opened her eyes, she saw Victor on one knee, holding a bag filled with gold. Victor, while giving the bag to Judy, said that for now, here is 100 million gold. Judy stood there, still in shock, holding the bag of gold tightly in her hand. Victor looked at her and asked her where her home was, since 10 billion gold will be heavy, so he will have it shipped to her home. Victor even provided her with a guard to protect her reward. Judy couldn't believe what she was hearing. Victor then placed his hand on her head and said, "This is the law. It must always be obeyed." The crowd behind them was equally stunned, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. Even Chihuahua, who had been watching the scene, had his mouth hung open. No one had expected Victor to actually follow through with his promise to reward the person who managed to pull out the stake from the ground. The performance was a significant turning point, as it allowed the Victor Special Law to become more famous than the self-governance law of the Baskerville clan. The citizens were touched by the simple logic of being rewarded for obeying the law and punished for disobeying it. People were discussing the new deputy consul, who was vastly different from his predecessors. Victor was known for keeping his word no matter what, which earned him a great deal of respect from the people. The society in which principles were upheld was something to be admired, and the implementation of the Vicar special law led to a noticeable decrease in unlawfulness and a halving of crime rates. Chihuahua had just finished writing something on a board in the deputy office when Vicar noticed and asked if it was written in the Eastern language. Vicar complimented Chihuahua on his handwriting, and Chihuahua expressed his admiration for Vicar's daring performance. That left him touched for the first time after 20 years of working there. Vicar explained that ruling citizens with wrath when they belittle the law and do not trust it is not the way to go. He shared how he thought hard about how to get the attention of the citizens and leave a lasting impression, and that was the result. Chihuahua was moved to tears and pledged to follow Vicar for the rest of his days. Vicar tried to calm Chihuahua down. Vicar's mind wandered as he thought about the recent performance he had orchestrated. He couldn't help but compare it to the one that Camus Morgue would have presented years from now. While Camus had managed to reduce the crime rate to 1%, but she was never really liked by the citizens due to the fear she instilled in them. Looking down at the map on the table, Vicar noted that the problems were only just beginning, since the reward of 10 billion gold had been used, and they needed to find a way to get it back. After marking some locations on the map, he explained that the locations marked on the map were where there were potential illegal groups, or where they may hide in the future. Vicar was determined to maintain these locations and confiscate their dirty money. Chihuahua looked at the map in surprise and asked Vicar how he knew where the criminal businesses were located. Vicar pointed to his nose and claimed that he could smell them. In reality, he had already surveyed those regions before his regression and knew them like the back of his hand. Chihuahua was impressed by Vicar's flawless investigation skills and wondered just how much he had already investigated. Suddenly, a staff member burst into the room, interrupting the conversation between Chihuahua and Vicar. The staff member addressed Deputy Consul Vicar, informing him that the Village Hall's Youth Autonomy Association had requested a meeting. Chihuahua, seemingly unsurprised by the news, commented that it was probably time for such a meeting to take place. Vicar, on the other hand, referred to them as arrogant bastards and questioned why they would want to see him. Chihuahua proceeded to inform Vicar that the Youth Autonomy Association was made up of various clans, including the Mant Blanc, Pure, Luovi, Channel, Ferragamo, Hermes, and Pradar clans. He explained that the organization was founded by the second and third generations of the 7 native families of Baskerville. Chihuahua went on to describe the Youth Autonomy Association as a promiscuous social club, despite its name suggesting otherwise. He speculated that the young masters of the group likely had something to say about the Vicar special law. Vicar said in a questioning tone, "The dung flies have started to smell the shit." This statement surprised both Chihuahua and the staff member. Vicar smirked and suggested that they should start annihilating the pests that are eating away the city. Deep within the burning suspension, a high-end club located within the underdog city's most luxurious hotel, a party was taking place. The VVIP lounge, which had been rented out for a whopping 10 million gold for a 6-hour rental service, was filled with the 7 crucial members of the Youth Autonomy Association. These members were the second and third generation children of the 7 families located within the Baskerville territory, a powerful and influential area within the city. The atmosphere was lively as the members of the association were making a tower with glasses and pouring drinks on them. They boasted about the price tag of each bottle as they continued to build the tower, which had a pyramid shape. The blonde guy in the club turned to the waiters and instructed them to drink the spilled wine on the table. The waiters obediently lapped it up like dogs, thanking him for the opportunity to enjoy such a precious drink. As he sat down on a sofa, he boasted about his wealth, remarking that no matter how much he spent, his money always replenished itself. One of the blonde guy's companions attributed it all to the Baskervilles, who only cared about territorial expansion and not about the demand for slaves. He remarked that it was easy to kidnap barbarians and sell them as slaves, thanks to the Baskervilles. The companions agreed that this was all thanks to the Baskervilles, and that it was great because they didn't have to worry about the imperial family. Another companion chimed in, remarking that the Baskervilles were also protecting them, making them even safer. He compared the Baskervilles to their personal hunting dogs, pointing out that they were always at their beck and call. The blonde guy scoffed at the idea, stating that the Baskervilles were nothing more than sword-wielding idiots who were easily manipulated. He mentioned the incident with the Mesimaginero clan, where they were able to push the blame onto the Mesimaginero clan, which was one of the most loyal clan, and watch as the Baskervilles decided to massacre them personally. As the group continued to talk, one of the companions mentioned a new deputy consul named Vicar, who was of Van descent. The blonde guy questioned if anyone had heard of him before, and when they replied no, he suggested that they teach the young government worker a lesson. The plan was to invite him to a party with the best drinks and women, and once the party was over, they would force him to pay for it. The blonde guy was confident that the 15-year-old wouldn't be able to report them since he wouldn't have any money. The companions agreed, and the group laughed at the thought of their impending prank. As they were discussing their plan, a waiter entered the room with some girls, announcing their arrival. The blonde guy and his companions looked up excitedly, eager to enjoy their evening with the ladies. One of the guys noticed a young male accompanying the ladies and questioned his presence. The waiter was unaware of who he was and answered that he entered with such confidence that nobody questioned him. The young male was none other than Victor. The waiter grabbed Victor by his hair and, in an angry tone, demanded to know why he was there. However, Victor's eyes glowed with anger, and suddenly the room fell silent as the group had shocked expression on their faces. As Victor approached the group, the waiter noticed that his arm was bent at an impossible angle, causing him to shout in pain. One of the guys who had initially pointed out Victor expressed his surprise at the sight. Victor introduced himself as Victor Van Baskerville, and the guy repeated his name and recognized him as the deputy consul, and questioned why he was there. Victor simply replied that they have invited him here. The blonde guy realized that the situation was getting out of hand and tried to calm down the situation and exclaimed with laughter, saying that it was amazing that he had come to the party. Victor watched the blonde guy whisper with one of his companions, discussing something. The blonde guy asked if they should enact their plans, and his companion agreed, suggesting they see how Victor deals with paying for everything. The blonde guy agreed and suggested they keep Victor there and force him to pay once the party was over. Victor couldn't take it any longer. He placed his hand on the table, interrupting their conversation, and demanded that they stop the pointless chatter. Suddenly, the whole table exploded, and glasses filled with drinks crashed to the floor, causing the people in the room to look on in surprise. As the drinks fell down, the blonde guy watched in disbelief as the table exploded, and his thoughts immediately went to Victor's potential abilities. He thought, could he have used mana manipulation to make the champagne tower explode just by touching the table? The blonde guy realized that Victor was a graduator. The blonde guy's companion was equally shocked and whispered in anger that they had thought Victor was just a 15-year-old kid. The blonde guy snapped back, telling his companion that they were a middle-class expert and should do something. But the companion was too scared, knowing that they would lose in an instant if they tried to fight Victor. Suddenly, Victor placed his hand on one of the guy's shoulders and addressed him directly. The guy was so scared that he blurted out that they were going to pay for the drinks. Victor questioned whether they were planning on forcing him to pay for everything, and the guy realized that he had made a huge mistake. Another companion spoke up, asking who would dare do such a thing. The blonde guy tried to calm the situation, saying that they only wanted to test Victor, as Underdog City had become corrupt. They wanted to ensure that Victor wouldn't be enticed by the city's offers. The blonde guy's companion agreed, saying that it seemed like Victor had what it takes to lead them, and they would be sure to follow. Victor suddenly attacked the guy sitting closest to him with a palm strike that was more like a claw attack. He clutched the guy's stomach tightly and delivered a stern message. An owner can test their dog, but a dog should never test their owner, no matter the situation. As he looked at the rest of the group, Victor questioned whether they were unmoved by his actions because they had money and power. He warned them that they had never seen anything truly frightening before. Victor threw the guy he had been holding to the ground and stepped on his face. He then looked at the rest of the group and asked if they knew why he had done this. If they didn't, it seemed like they would meet the same fate. The blonde guy's face was stricken with fear as he stuttered out a response, saying that they were well aware of why Victor had taken such actions. But Victor kicked the man's head on which he was stepping on, and told them that if they really knew, they would understand what he would do next. The group became angry seeing this, and blonde guy called Victor a bastard, while another questioned if he thought he could get away with it. Suddenly, Victor appeared right in front of the second guy and accused the group of committing crimes such as abduction, kidnapping, illegal slave trafficking, and insulting Baskerville. The rest of the group had a shocked expression hearing Victor mention the crimes that they had done. Victor then punched the second guy and told them that animals don't learn until you teach them. Victor's face turned into an evil grin as said that now he was prepared to teach the disobedient creatures a lesson.